Show more 10:22 p.m. 3 players. 30 minutes. And basketball that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the game. You ever watch someone do something so smooth, so effortless, that you forget to breathe? That's what happens when you put Herbert, Dyson Ladd, and Zion Hampton on a basketball court. These three names might not be at the very top of every mainstream sports headline right now, but trust me, after these 30 minutes together, you're going to remember exactly where you were the first time you truly paid attention to them. Because what these players are doing in 2025 is not just basketball. It's a statement. It's a preview. It's a message to every scout, every coach, every fan sitting courtside or watching from their couch at midnight, saying, hey, pay attention. Something special is happening right here. And we're going to walk through it together. Every highlight, every moment, every time the ball left their hands and the crowd lost its mind. We're going to feel it, not just watch it. Feel it. So settle in. Get comfortable. Because the next 30 minutes, they belong to Herbert, Ladd, and Hampton. Let's go back to the beginning. Before we dive into the highlights themselves, you need to understand something important. You need to understand who these three players are, not just as athletes, but as people who grew up with a ball in their hands and a dream in their chest. Because the highlights don't exist in a vacuum. They exist because of everything that came before them. Every early morning practice. Every late night gym session. Every moment where someone told them they weren't quite good enough, and they decided to prove that person absolutely, completely, 100% wrong. Herbert. Let's start there. Herbert is the kind of player that coaches talk about when they're trying to explain what basketball IQ actually means. It's a term you hear all the time, basketball IQ, but most people watching from the stands aren't quite sure what it looks like in action. Then Herbert gets the ball, and suddenly you understand. You see it in his eyes first. Before he even touches the rock, he's already 3 steps ahead. He knows where the defense is going to collapse. He knows which teammate is about to get open. He knows when to attack and when to wait, and that patience, that almost supernatural patience for a young player, is what makes him so dangerous. He doesn't play with panic. He plays with purpose. And then there's Dyson Ladd. If Herbert is the chess player, Ladd is the one who flips the board over and dares you to keep up. He plays with this raw, electric energy that is genuinely contagious. When Ladd gets going, when he locks in, and the game slows down for him the way it only slows down for special players, the whole gym feels it. The fans lean forward. The opposing bench gets a little quieter. His teammates start moving differently because they know something is coming. Ladd has this ability to shift the entire momentum of a game with a single play. Not a single quarter. Not a single possession. A single play. One bucket. One steal. One moment where he decides that the game is going to go in a different direction, and then it does. Just like that. Like flipping a switch. And then there's Zion Hampton. Ladd has this ability to shift the entire momentum of a game with a single play. Not a single quarter. Not a single possession. A single play. One bucket. One steal. One moment where he decides that the game is going to go in a different direction, and then it does. Just like that. Like flipping a switch. And then there's Zion Hampton. Now, Zion Hampton is a name that carries weight even before you watch him play. There's an expectation there, right? With a name like Zion, with the kind of pedigree and attention that follows him, there's always going to be a level of scrutiny that most players his age never have to deal with. Every game is analyzed. Every performance is dissected. People are always looking for reasons to either crown him or doubt him. But here's what the highlights show you, and they show you this over and over again, so clearly that it's almost impossible to argue. Hampton doesn't play like someone who's worried about expectations. He plays like someone who simply loves the game. There's a joy to his game that you can't fake. You can't manufacture that kind of enthusiasm on a basketball court. The smile after a big play. The way he competes on defense like it's the most fun he's ever had. The fearlessness when the moment is biggest. That's real. That's genuine. And that's what makes him special. 3 players. Very different styles. But somehow, when you watch their highlights together, when you experience what they each brought to 2025, you start to see a thread. A common theme. A shared language that only the best players speak. They all play the game the right way. They all make winning plays. They all have that thing that scouts spend entire careers trying to define and failing. The thing that separates the good from the great. Let's get into it. The first thing that hits you when you watch Herbert's 2025 highlights is the handle. Oh, that handle. You have to understand, ball handling at the highest levels of competition is not just about keeping the ball away from defenders. It's about control. It's about manipulation. It's about using the ball as an extension of your body to create space where there is no space, to find angles that don't exist until you make them exist. And Herbert handles the basketball like it's attached to his fingertips by an invisible string. There's this moment, and if you've seen his highlights, you know exactly which one I'm talking about, where Herbert picks up the ball at the top of the key, surveys the defense, and then just starts to move. And the defender in front of him, a good defender, an athletic, well-coached defender, just starts losing. Not suddenly, gradually, like watching someone lose a puzzle piece by piece. Herbert goes left, then right, crosses through his legs, hesitates for just half a second. That half second is everything, by the way, because that's where he's reading the defender's weight shift, reading which foot is planted, deciding in real time which way the door is going to open. And then he's gone. Just gone. Blowing by the defender like he was standing still. And then the finish. This is where Herbert separates himself even further. Because getting past your defender is one thing. Actually finishing the play when 2, sometimes 3, other defenders are collapsing to stop you, that's a different skill set entirely. You need touch. You need body control. You need the ability to absorb contact and still somehow guide the ball to the rim with enough finesse to actually make it. Herbert finishes like a veteran. He uses the glass. He uses both hands with genuine ambidexterity, which is rare at any level. He contorts his body midair in ways that seem to defy logic, leaning away from the shot blocker, changing his release angle at the last possible moment, converting the kind of N1 opportunities that make highlight reels legendary. But here's what's even more impressive than the flashy stuff. The reads. The decision-making. Because for every moment where Herbert attacks and finishes, there are multiple moments where he attacks and passes. Where he draws 2 defenders and finds the open man cutting to the basket. Where he comes off a screen, pulls up like he's going to shoot, waits for the big man to commit and close out, and then fires a skip pass across the court to a corner 3 shooter who gets a clean look because of Herbert's gravity. That's the stuff that doesn't always show up in the box score. The stuff that casual fans might not immediately notice. But coaches notice. Scouts notice. And your teammates definitely notice. Ask any player who's shared the court with someone like Herbert, someone who makes the right play every time, someone who you know is going to put you in the best possible position, and they'll tell you the same thing. It makes the game easier for everyone around them. It makes the whole team better. And in 2025, Herbert took that responsibility and he ran with it. Not just in the moments where the game was comfortable, where the shots were falling and the energy was good, but in the hard moments. The moments where the other team made a run. Where the crowd went quiet, where the pressure was at its absolute maximum. That's when you find out what a player is made of. And Herbert was built for those moments. There's a sequence. I want you to picture this. Late in a tight game, his team down by 2 with the clock winding down. The ball swings to Herbert at the wing. He's got a defender right in his face, hand up, doing everything right. The easy play, the safe play, is to kick it back out and reset. But Herbert sees something. A crease. A tiny, almost invisible window in the defense that opens for exactly 1 second. He takes 1 dribble to his left. Just 1. The defender reacts. And in that reaction, in that tiny shift of weight and position, the window opens just a little bit wider. Herbert pulls up. The ball comes off his fingertips with that easy, effortless rotation that you either have or you don't. It goes in. The crowd erupts. His bench erupts. And Herbert just jogs back on defense like he knew it was going in the whole time. Because he did. Now let's talk about something that doesn't always get the attention it deserves when people discuss young guards trying to make their mark. Defense. Specifically, Herbert's defense. Because in 2025, he was not just a highlight reel on one end of the court. He was a problem on both ends. And that combination, genuine two-way ability at his age, at his level of competition. That is what makes his future so absurdly exciting. When Herbert locks in defensively, his foot speed becomes a weapon. He can stay in front of almost anyone. He's got quick hands, the kind of quick hands that seem to appear from nowhere, and he uses his length effectively to bother shooters and disrupt passing lanes without fouling. That last part is important because so many young defensive players are aggressive but undisciplined. They reach, they foul, they give up easy points trying to make the spectacular play. Herbert is disciplined. He trusts his feet over his hands. He stays attached. And when the right opportunity presents itself, when a ball handler gets careless or overdribbles or telegraphs a pass just a fraction of a second too soon, Herbert is there. There's a steal in one of his 2025 highlights that I keep coming back to. The offensive player catches the ball in the post, turns to make a move, and Herbert reaches in with his left hand, his offhand, and just pops the ball free, picks it up, and is gone before the offensive player even fully processes what happened. The crowd reacted with that particular sound. You know the one, that mix of gasps and laughter and disbelief that only happens when someone does something so sudden, so precise, that the brain can't quite catch up in real time. That sound. That's the sound of a player telling the world, I am here. I am dangerous. You cannot sleep on me. And the world was starting to listen. Okay, deep breath. Because now we're talking about Dyson Ladd. And Dyson Ladd requires a different kind of energy. See, with Herbert, we talk about precision, about IQ, about the chess player quality of his game. With Ladd, we need to talk about something more primal, more electric, more like watching a lightning storm and trying to figure out where the next bolt is going to strike. Ladd plays with controlled chaos. That sounds like a contradiction, but once you see him play, it makes complete sense. There's always this sense of unpredictability about him. Defenders never quite know what he's going to do next because half the time, it seems like Ladd doesn't know either. Like he's improvising in real time, finding solutions that nobody else would have thought of because nobody else has his combination of athleticism, creativity, and sheer basketball nerve. But underneath all that improvisation, underneath all the flair and the spontaneity, there's a foundation. There's a real player in there. Someone who has put in the work. Someone who understands the game at a deep level even when he's playing like he's making it all up on the spot. That duality is what makes Ladd so watchable. And in 2025, he was absolutely must-watch television. Let's start with the athleticism because it needs to be acknowledged before anything else. Ladd is one of those players who makes you aware of your own physical limitations just by watching him. The explosiveness off the floor. The hang time that seems to last just a beat longer than physics should allow. The first step that covers ground so quickly that you wonder, for just a moment, if your eyes are playing tricks on you. They're not. He is just that fast. There's a play in his 2025 reel where Ladd gets the ball in transition, defender backpedaling to cut him off, angles converging at the rim, and any normal player would have pulled up for the floater or dumped it off to a trailer. Any normal player. But Ladd goes full speed right at the defender, and then at the very last second, the very last possible moment before contact, he elevates, just goes straight up, above the defender, above the moment, and lays it in with his right hand while his body is completely parallel to the floor. Stop. Think about that. Parallel to the floor. And he made the basket. The referee had to pause for just a moment before calling the foul, because even the official wasn't sure what he'd just witnessed. That play, that one play, is a summary of everything Dyson Ladd is as a basketball player. The audacity, the athleticism, the refusal to accept the conventional solution when a spectacular one is available. The willingness to put his body in impossible positions because his body can actually do the impossible. Not every player can do that. Actually, almost no player can do that. Ladd can. But let me tell you about the moments that matter even more than the athleticism. Because athleticism fades. Athleticism gets matched at higher levels of competition. The players who make it, who truly make it to the very top, are the ones who have more than just physical gifts. The ones who can do the hard things, the necessary things. Ladd's three-point shooting in 2025 took a significant step forward. This is a big deal. This is a massive deal if you're trying to project where his game goes from here. Because when Lad first came onto the scene, the legitimate question was, can he shoot? Can he make defenses pay for sagging off him? Can he be a threat from distance? Or is he just a paint-bound athlete who can be neutralized by loading up the lane? 2025 answered that question. Loudly. Shot after shot, Lad demonstrated that his jumper, while not yet in the elite category, is real. It's consistent. It's reliable enough that defenders can no longer give him space. And the moment a defender has to close out on Lad at the three-point line, the entire offense opens up because now he can attack the closeout. Now he can use that first step to blow past someone who's moving toward him instead of being set in a good defensive position. That's how the game works at the highest levels. One improvement creates ripple effects throughout your entire game. One skill you add changes the calculus for every defense that faces you. Lad added the jumper, and everything else got easier. There's a sequence from his 2025 highlights where he hits back-to-back threes in a critical stretch of a close game. The first one, he's catch and shoot off a driving kick. Receives it in rhythm, feet already set, and he doesn't hesitate. Doesn't even look at the rim the way some players do, nervously, like they're asking the basket for permission. He just shoots. Compact, quick release, and the ball drops through the net with that clean, rattleless swish that crowds absolutely adore. The second one comes 3 possessions later. This time, he's off the dribble. Takes 2 dribbles to his right, stops on a dime. That stop, that ability to gather and rise without any wasted movement, that's coachable only up to a point. At some level, you either have that natural rhythm or you don't, and lets it fly from about a foot behind the line. Swish. The crowd goes absolutely crazy. Not just because of the basket, but because of what it represents. Because everyone in that gym who has been watching Lad for more than a few months knows that this is new. This is growth. This is a player adding a layer to his game that makes him genuinely, legitimately, frighteningly difficult to guard. And Lad? He knows it too. You can see it in his confidence after those shots. Not arrogance. Confidence. There's a difference. Arrogance is when you celebrate before you've earned it. Confidence is when you celebrate because you know exactly how much work went into that moment. Confidence is Lad jogging back on defense after that second 3, pointing at his teammate who made the right pass, nodding like, yeah, that's what we do. That's who we are. That's a leader being born right in front of your eyes.
Now let's talk about Lad's defense, because this is where the conversation gets really interesting. Defense is often described as a reflection of a player's character. You can't fake effort on defense. You can't fake competitiveness. You can fake a lot of things on a basketball court. You can look like you're working hard on offense while actually taking plays off, coasting on your talent. But defense demands presence. Defense demands that you show up every single play, whether the ball is near you or not, whether anyone is watching you or not. Lad defends like someone who takes it personally. In 2025, there were multiple stretches where he simply took an opponent completely out of a game. Not by doing anything dirty or cheap, just by being everywhere, by denying catches, by making every single dribble feel contested, by using that elite first step, the same one he uses to destroy people on offense, to cut off drives before they develop, to recover after getting beaten, to fly into passing lanes and come up with steals that seem to come out of absolutely nowhere. There's a play, a defensive play, which is not what you usually see in a highlight reel, but this one earned its spot, where the opposing team is running a set play, everything designed, everyone in their right spot, the kind of play that works against most defenses. The ball goes to the wing. The wing drives baseline. Lad's man sets a screen to free up the corner shooter. Lad fights through the screen. Not over it, through it, which requires both physicality and anticipation. Recovers and gets a hand on the skip pass, deflecting it away from the shooter and sending it out of bounds. Possession denied. Nothing to show for it on the stat sheet except a deflection, maybe. But the play was real. The impact was real. The message was real. You're not getting an easy one on me. Not today. Not ever. And now, finally, beautifully, dramatically, Zion Hampton. I've been saving this one. And if you've been patient enough to stay with me through everything we've covered about Herbert and Lad, the precision, the athleticism, the growth, the defense, all of it, then you deserve this. Because Zion Hampton in 2025 was something else entirely. Let me set the scene. Hampton enters 2025 carrying not just his own expectations but a kind of generational weight. There are players who exist at the intersection of basketball and culture, where what happens on the court becomes symbolic of something larger. Where every game is watched not just by fans but by a whole community of people who see themselves in that player, who need that player to do well because it feels like a reflection of something they all share. Hampton carries that weight. And here's the remarkable thing. He makes it look easy. Not because it is easy, but because he has done the work, put in the time, built the foundation to the point where the pressure doesn't crush him, fuels him. Let's talk about the scoring first, because Hampton's scoring is the thing that makes people gasp. The range. Oh, the range. Hampton can hurt you from anywhere on the court. And that's not an exaggeration. This is not a player with one or two reliable spots. This is a player who makes defenders uncomfortable everywhere. At the rim, where he finishes with a creativity and softness that shouldn't be possible given how powerfully he attacks the basket. In the mid-range, where he's developed a pull-up jumper that is absolutely automatic in the right situations. And from three, where his mechanics are clean enough and his confidence high enough that leaving him open even for a moment is a choice that defenses quickly learn to regret. That combination, that ability to score at all three levels, is the holy grail for perimeter players. It's what separates the really good players from the ones who can genuinely change the game. Because when you can score anywhere, the defense has no choice but to respect everything. And when the defense respects everything, gaps appear, and when gaps appear, your whole offense runs more smoothly. Hampton is a system opener just by being on the court. But let's get specific. There's a possession in his 2025 highlights where Hampton catches the ball on the wing, pump fakes, and the defender absolutely buys it, goes up in the air, completely out of position. And instead of taking the contact and going to the free throw line, which would have been the easy, safe play, Hampton drives past the now airborne defender and attacks the rim. Two more defenders converge. Hampton sees them coming, executes a perfect Euro step, that two-step rhythm that looks simple until you try to do it at full speed while being chased by multiple defenders, and lays it in with his left hand. The crowd. Oh, the crowd. That sound. That eruption. The kind that fills the whole arena and doesn't stop right away. That keeps going for a second because people are still processing, still catching up to what they just saw, still turning to the person next to them to say, "Did that just happen? Did you just see that?" That's Hampton. That's what he brings.
But here's the part of Hampton's 2025 highlights that I think people underestimate. The part that might actually be the most impressive thing about him. His playmaking. Hampton is listed as a guard, and guards are expected to be able to handle and pass to some degree. But what Hampton does as a passer in 2025 goes well beyond what's expected. It's the level of vision, the level of creativity, the ability to see angles and anticipate movements that most players his age simply cannot see. He makes passes that require you to rewind and watch a second time. Not because they don't make sense, they absolutely make sense, but because they happen so fast, with such precision, with such perfect timing, that your brain needs another look just to confirm that yes, that pass was intentional, that yes, he saw that opening before anyone else did, that yes, this is a player who is thinking 2 steps ahead of the defense while also being a scoring threat that requires constant attention. There's a play in his reel, and this is the one that I keep thinking about, that I keep coming back to when I try to explain to people why Hampton is special, where he catches the ball on the perimeter with the defense already set in a good position, no obvious opening anywhere. A lesser player sees nothing and retreats, kicks it back to the ball handler, resets. Hampton takes one dribble toward the top of the key, then freezes. The defense adjusts. In that adjustment, in those half seconds where 4 defenders are each deciding where to be, Hampton sees a lane opening in the paint, a cutter coming from the weak side, and delivers a bounce pass that splits 2 defenders and hits the cutter perfectly in stride. The cutter catches it and lays it up before the defense can recover. Easy basket. Beautiful play. But watch Hampton's reaction. He doesn't celebrate the pass. He just turns and gets back on defense.
Composed.
Like making a pass that 99% of players at his level couldn't even see, let alone execute, is just another Tuesday. That composure, that self-possession, that is what you cannot teach. You cannot coach someone to have that kind of internal calm. That has to come from somewhere deeper. From thousands of hours of preparation that build a kind of confidence in your own abilities that external pressure simply cannot shake. Hampton has that. He has always had that. Let's slow down for a second. Let's breathe. Because I want to talk about something that doesn't always get discussed in highlight reels. Something that is harder to see when you're watching the big moments, the dunks, the crossovers, the long-range jumpers. But that is absolutely crucial to understanding why these three players, Herbert, Ladd, and Hampton, are as special as they are. Consistency. Not one great game. Not one spectacular highlight. Consistency over time, over the course of an entire season, over moments when the body is tired and the mind is heavy and the other team is doing everything right and nothing seems to be working the way you practiced it. Consistency is the hardest thing in sports. It is infinitely harder than talent. Talent gets you in the room. Consistency is what keeps you there. And in 2025, all three of these players demonstrated a level of consistency that speaks volumes about their character, their work ethic, and their futures. Herbert was consistently reliable. Game after game, he came in and made the right plays.
His team could count on him.
His coaches could put him in critical situations knowing that he was going to execute, was going to keep his head, was going to do what the team needed even when it wasn't what would make the highlight reel. That kind of reliability is worth its weight in gold. Ladd was consistently electric, which sounds simple, but is actually incredibly difficult. It's easy to be electric once. It's easy to have one great performance where everything comes together and you feel invincible. Doing it over and over again, finding that level of intensity and bringing it consistently, requires something that goes beyond talent or athleticism. It requires a certain kind of mentality. A love of competition that doesn't diminish when things get hard, that actually grows stronger. And Hampton was consistently special. Consistently the kind of player that made people stop whatever they were doing and pay attention. Night after night, there was a moment, sometimes many moments, where Hampton did something that reminded everyone watching why they love this game, why they stay up late to watch, why they follow someone from one level to the next because they sense that they are watching the beginning of something great. Consistently special. What a thing to be. Now, I want to take you inside something. I want to take you inside the mentality that produces the kind of basketball these three players showed us in 2025. Because when you watch highlights, you're seeing the result. You're seeing the final product after all the invisible work. And the invisible work is where the real story lives. Think about what it takes to get to the moment where you're in a tight game, the ball in your hands, the defense collapsing, the crowd holding its breath. Think about the thousands of times you've been in that same situation in practice, in film sessions, in solo workouts at 6 in the morning when nobody is watching. The thousands of repetitions that have prepared your body and your mind to react correctly, to make the right decision. Not because you're thinking in that moment, but because you have thought about it so many times before that the right response has become automatic. That's the invisible work. That's what the highlights don't show you. But they do show you the result. And the result, in Herbert's case, is a player who never seems rattled, who always seems to be in control, whose face doesn't change whether he just made a big shot or just turned the ball over. And yes, turnovers happen to everyone, even the best, and how a player responds to adversity tells you everything about them. Herbert responds to adversity by getting back on defense and immediately thinking about the next play. Not the last one. The next one. He lets it go. He doesn't carry it. And that mental toughness, that ability to stay present, to stay focused, to not let one bad moment snowball into 5 bad moments, is one of the rarest and most valuable qualities a basketball player can possess. And Ladd responds to adversity with fire, with intensity, with a redoubling of effort that can be almost scary to watch from the opposing bench, because you can see it happening. You can see the moment where he decides that what just happened is not acceptable, and the gears shift, and suddenly he is playing with a different level of purpose and urgency. He channels it. He uses it. Some players get frustrated, and that frustration makes them worse. Ladd gets frustrated, and it makes him better. That's a superpower. And Hampton responds to adversity with something almost philosophical, a kind of steadiness that makes you wonder if the pressure is even registering the way it registers for everyone else. Maybe it is, and he's just that good at not showing it. Maybe the work he's put in is so thorough, so comprehensive, that what looks like nonchalance is actually the deepest possible form of preparation. Or maybe, and this is what I think when I watch him, maybe Zion Hampton just genuinely, truly, completely loves playing basketball more than he fears any outcome. And that love, that pure love of the game, is its own kind of armor. Let's get back into the highlights, because there's so much more to cover. One of the things that defines all three of these players' 2025 reels is the quality of their play in transition. Fast break basketball, running the floor, the moments between half-court sets when the game opens up and the players with the best combination of speed, athleticism, and decision-making do their most spectacular work. Herbert in transition is a joy to watch because of the control. You might think, watching him run the break, that he's going to go too fast, that he's going to make the wrong decision, that the pace of the play is going to outrun his IQ. It never does. He's somehow always in control of the speed. He dictates the pace. He can push it when pushing it is right, and he can pull the reins and slow things down when the defense is getting set and there's a better play to make in the half court. That control in transition is not natural. That's learned. That's the product of watching film, of understanding defensive positioning, of making mistakes at high speed and adjusting and learning. Watching Herbert push the pace in 2025 is watching years of accumulated knowledge being applied in real time at full speed. And there's this play, I love this play, where Herbert pushes the ball in transition with two teammates running the lanes on either side. The defense retreats. 3 against 2. The easiest play in basketball, right? You just read the defense go where they're not simple. Except Herbert does something unexpected. Instead of attacking the middle and forcing the defense to commit before kicking it to one of the wings, he takes it all the way to the rim. Full speed. Like he's going to finish himself. The two defenders both converge on him. They have no choice. He's at the rim, and at the last possible second, without even looking, he fires a no-look pass to the right corner, where his teammate has set up for 3. The 3 goes in. And the play started as a simple transition advantage and ended as an absolutely perfect execution of one of basketball's hardest reads, making the defense think you're doing one thing and doing something else entirely. Ladd in transition is pure spectacle, pure electricity. When Ladd gets the ball in open court and there's space in front of him, things are about to get very exciting and very bad for whoever is between him and the basket. The combination of his first step and his straight-line speed makes him nearly impossible to contain once he's moving. Defenders have to gamble, either sag and give him the pull-up, which he's demonstrated he can hit, or try to stay in front of him and risk getting blown by for an easy layup or a thundering dunk. There's a fast break play in his 2025 reel that I want you to picture very carefully. Ball is turned over near half court. Ladd is in perfect position, already moving before the turnover fully happens, reading the play a half second before it develops, which is another one of those invisible skills that separates elite defenders from everyone else. He picks up the loose ball, sees nothing but open court ahead of him, and he is gone. One player chases from behind.
Can't catch him.
Won't catch him. One defender retreats to cut off the angle. Here's where it gets good. The defender positions himself correctly. Textbook positioning, body between Ladd and the basket, forcing him baseline. The smart play for the defender is to make Ladd change direction, make him slow down, take away the direct path to the rim. But Ladd doesn't slow down. He gathers. He takes off from the right side of the lane. The defender goes up to challenge. And Ladd brings the ball from his right hand to his left midair, full extension, full commitment, no hesitation, and finishes on the left side of the rim while the defender can only watch. The arena. The sound. That sound when thousands of people react simultaneously to something that just did not seem physically possible and yet somehow happened right in front of their eyes. That's Dyson Ladd. That's 2025. Hampton in transition might be the most devastating of the 3. And I say that knowing what I've just told you about Ladd, knowing the spectacular things Ladd does in open court. But Hampton has something in his transition game that is uniquely dangerous, uniquely hard to plan for. He makes the right play. Always. Every single time. Now that sounds simple.
Make the right play.
Of course. But here's the thing. In transition basketball, at the speed these games are played, at the level of athleticism these players have, Making the right play is genuinely one of the hardest things to do consistently. Because the options change faster than thought. Because the defense is moving. Because your teammates are at different spots than they were a second ago. Making the right play consistently in transition requires a mental processing speed that is almost supernatural. It requires that your brain is already cataloging every piece of information, where the defense is, where your teammates are, how much space you have, what angle leads to the highest percentage outcome, before you even consciously think about it. Hampton has that processing speed. There's a transition sequence in his 2025 highlights, not one play, a sequence, because sometimes the story of a player is better told over the course of multiple possessions than in a single moment, where Hampton makes 3 perfect decisions in a row. First, he pushes the ball and finds a cutting teammate for an easy layup when the numbers are in his favor. Smart. Simple.
Correct.
Second possession, same situation, but this time the defense is set. He reads that immediately, slows it down, runs a little 2-man game at the top of the key, draws 2 defenders, and finds the open man in the corner. Third possession, the defense has overcorrected. They're sitting back, worried about the kick-out pass, giving Hampton space at the top of the key. He reads that immediately too, pulls up from about 19 feet, and buries the mid-range jumper. 3 possessions, 3 different reads, 3 correct decisions, 3 baskets. That's not luck. That's not athleticism. That's basketball intelligence operating at the very highest level. I want to talk about the moments in these highlights that didn't go perfectly, because I think those moments are just as important as the spectacular ones. Maybe more important, because those are the moments where we see who these players really are, where we see the character behind the crossovers and the threes and the no-look passes. Every player in every highlight reel has moments that don't work out. That's the reality of basketball. That's the reality of competing at a high level. You try things that don't always work. You take shots that don't always fall. You make reads that are wrong. It happens. The question is what you do after. Herbert has moments in 2025 where his penetration doesn't work, where the defense is loaded up, where there's no gap to exploit, and he has to accept a possession where nothing great happens, where the best play is just maintaining possession and resetting. Those moments used to be harder for young players. The instinct is to force it, to try anyway, to make something happen even when the defense is saying clearly and decisively, not today. Herbert resists that instinct. He takes the safe play. He maintains the possession. He resets. And 2 plays later, when the defense relaxes just a tiny bit, when they think they've solved him, he attacks again. And this time there's a gap. That patience, that wisdom, that's what separates the good from the great. Lad has moments where the acrobatics don't land, where he goes up for that spectacular finish and the ball rattles out, where he tries the no-look pass and it sails out of bounds. Those plays happen. They happen because Lad is always pushing boundaries, always testing the edges of what's possible. And occasionally he finds the edge and goes over it. But here's the thing about Lad. He does not stop going to those places. He does not start playing scared because one spectacular attempt didn't work out. He recalibrates, adjusts, but he doesn't shrink. The next possession, he's still playing with the same aggression, the same creativity, the same willingness to try things that only he would try. That's courage. Real courage. Not the absence of doubt, but the decision to keep going anyway. Hampton has moments where his shot doesn't fall, where he puts up attempts that look good, great mechanics, good looks, smart decisions to shoot, and the ball just doesn't cooperate. Those moments reveal something beautiful about him. He doesn't stop shooting. He doesn't start second-guessing. He trusts his process. He trusts his mechanics. He knows that the percentages are on his side if he keeps doing the right things, and so he keeps doing the right things. And eventually, inevitably, they go in. Shooter's mentality. Game after game. Shot after shot. That's what it looks like. That's what it requires. And Hampton has it in abundance. Let's talk about something that connects all 3 of these players in a way that goes beyond basketball. Legacy. Not their legacy in the grand, historical sense. It's 2025 and they're still young, still building, still writing the story. But the legacy in the smaller, immediate sense. The way that what they do right now, the plays they make, the way they carry themselves, the way they treat the game, all of that is being watched. All of that is shaping something. Young players all over the country, all over the world, are watching Herbert and learning what basketball IQ looks like, what it means to be the smart player, the reliable player, the player whose teammates always trust them. Young players are watching Lad and learning that athleticism without limits, creativity without apology, the willingness to be spectacular, that those things are not just acceptable, they're necessary. That the game needs players who try to do the impossible because sometimes the impossible happens. Young players are watching Hampton and learning what it looks like to play with joy, to compete with love, to carry weight without letting the weight carry you, to be good at this game in a way that goes beyond technique, beyond tactics, into something almost spiritual. That's the legacy that's being built right now, one highlight at a time. I want to spend some time now talking about what each of these players' 2025 highlights tell us about their futures. Because that's the thing about a great highlight reel. It's not just a document of what happened. It's a window into what might happen. It's a glimpse of potential, of trajectory, of the direction a player is heading. And when you look at Herbert, Ladd, and Hampton with that lens, when you stop asking what did they do and start asking where are they going, the answers are genuinely exciting. Herbert is heading toward a career defined by longevity and impact. He's the kind of player who gets better every single year because his game is built on a foundation of skills, reading the defense, making the right pass, finishing efficiently, that age well. He's not relying on being the most athletic player in the gym. He's relying on being the most prepared, the most disciplined, the most consistent. Those things don't decline with age. If anything, they improve. The ceiling for Herbert is a player who becomes absolutely essential, the kind of player a franchise builds around not because of highlight moments, but because of what he does to a team's overall functioning. The player who makes everyone else better. The player who wins games in ways that don't always show up on the stat sheet but absolutely show up in the final score. Those are the players coaches lose sleep over when they lose them. Those are the players who define winning cultures. Ladd is heading toward a career that could be historic if everything comes together. And the 2025 highlights show the coming together in real time. The athleticism was always there. The competitiveness was always there. But what 2025 showed, what it proved actually with evidence over the course of a full season, is that the skill development is happening. The shooting is coming. The decision-making is maturing. The defensive intensity is sustainable. If Ladd continues on the trajectory that 2025 established, if he keeps adding tools to a toolbox that already holds some absolutely extraordinary natural gifts, then we could be looking at one of the most complete players of his generation. That's not hyperbole. That's what the arc of his development suggests. The ceiling for Ladd is a player who can take over any game from any position on the floor, who can be a primary option or a supporting option depending on what the team needs, who can guard multiple positions and create chaos on defense while creating efficiency on offense. That's a special player. That's a franchise cornerstone. And Hampton. Let's talk about Hampton. Hampton is heading toward a career that will be written about. Not just watched, written about. The kind of career that inspires articles and documentaries and long-form pieces trying to capture what made him so special, trying to put into words what everyone who is lucky enough to watch him already knows in their bones. Because Hampton has that quality that is almost impossible to define but absolutely impossible to miss. The quality that makes you want to watch. That makes you choose his games when you have a choice, that makes you stop scrolling when his highlights appear, that makes you lean forward just a little bit every time he has the ball in a critical moment. Some players have that. Most don't. Hampton has it. He has always had it. And 2025 was the year when the conversation about his ceiling stopped being tentative and started being bold. The ceiling for Hampton is greatness. Real, legitimate, enduring greatness. The kind that gets talked about in the same breath as the players who define eras. We're getting close to the end of our journey through these 30 minutes. And I want to end not with a big highlight, not with the most spectacular play from any of the 3 reels we've been through. I want to end with something quieter, something that is, in its own way, more powerful than any dunk or crossover or game-winning shot. I want to end with a moment that happened, or that could have happened, or that captures the truth of what we've been watching. Imagine this. The game is over. The crowd is filtering out. The scoreboard is dark. The arena is quiet the way only arenas can be quiet after the sound has gone. This particular kind of silence that is really just an echo of everything that happened, all the cheering and the shouts and the collective held breath that this space held for 2 hours. And one of our 3 players, pick any one, it doesn't matter because this is true of all 3 of them, is still on the floor. They don't have to be. The game is done. The coaches are in the locker room. The other players have all gone in. But they're still out there, working, taking one more round of shots, getting one more sequence of repetitions. Not because someone told them to, not because someone is watching, just because this is who they are. This is what they do. This is the invisible work that the highlights don't show you. And maybe just for a moment they stop. They look around the empty arena. They think about the game that just happened, about the things that went right, about the things that could have been better, about what they're going to work on tomorrow. And then they get back to it. That's the real story. Not the dunks. Not the threes. Not the plays that make thousands of people lose their minds. The work. The commitment. The love. That's what produced every single highlight we've talked about today. Every single one. 30 minutes of Herbert, Ladd, and Hampton. 30 minutes of basketball played at the highest level by 3 young players who are still becoming who they're going to be. Still adding layers. Still surprising people. Still proving, over and over again, that they are exactly as special as the believers always knew they were. Herbert, who plays the game with the wisdom of someone twice his age. Who makes the right play, always, and whose reliability is a kind of greatness that doesn't always get the recognition it deserves, but that every winning team needs. Ladd, who plays the game with the energy of someone who has been waiting his whole life for these moments. Whose athleticism is spectacular, yes, but whose development into a complete player is even more exciting than any individual highlight. And Hampton, who plays the game with the joy and the confidence and the fearlessness of someone who was born for this. Whose ceiling is sky high and whose floor, the absolute minimum of what he will accomplish, is already more than most players will ever achieve. 3 different players, 3 different stories, 3 different ways of being great, but one game. The same game that has produced magic for as long as people have been watching. The same game that makes you forget about everything else when you're truly inside it. The same game that these 3 players love with everything they have. And in 2025, they reminded everyone watching why we love it too. The highlights are over now. The screen goes dark. But the players? The players keep going. Keep working. Keep building toward whatever comes next. And whatever comes next, we are going to want to watch every single second of it.